Hey everyone, welcome back to the Book Cave with me, Jenny. So today I have part 4 of reading through Goosebumps, and this is going to be the first one that's dedicated completely to Goosebumps HorrorLand. As I said at the end of the last Goosebumps vlog, I didn't realize these had to be read in order, so I read book 3 first. And after reading that, I am now going back to reading them in order. Although I also feel like there's an alternate way to do this, because you have part 1, which is the Goosebumps story, and then you have Entering Horrorland, and that is the part that is interconnected. So this one obviously stars Slappy, and we have Brittany, whose cousin has Slappy, and this one has one of the more ironic endings that I feel like R.L.Stine does very well, and I just find them hilarious. As I've said many, many times before, I cannot completely explain why, but I just do. And Slappy is just always kind of a hit for me because obviously we all know who he's supposed to be, and that doll is also unkillable. And yeah, so this was another fun one. I did enjoy the Horrorland part because Horrorland was one of my favorite Goosebumps, maybe not my absolute favorites, but one of them. And so to go back there and just have this mystery that is apparently going to continue throughout the whole series is very fun and enjoyable, and it again has all those different twists and turns. I do feel like the Horrorland part might turn out to be a little darker than the normal Goosebumps, but that kind of remains to be seen. But I am also very excited for the next book, as I believe it connects to Deep Trouble, which was another one of my favorite Goosebumps. I do want to say, like, that order was probably Deep Trouble first, and then I did really enjoy Horrorland as well, and then Beware the Snowman, just because that was my first one. But yeah, I will report back once I have read that next. Creep from the Deep is the second in the Horrorland series from Goosebumps, and I liked this one again. I liked each part individually, and I did like the fact that the Horrorland part did at least somewhat tie into the first part. One thing that did annoy me a little bit is that Billy and Sheena were the main characters in Deep Trouble and Deep Trouble 2. And they were 12 and 10, and then 13 and 11. And now in this one, they're back down to 12 and 10, and there's really not any connection to the original Deep Troubles, other than the fact that they are the same kids, and they are staying with their uncle on his boat for the summer, and he is a scientist. So I do wish that there had been a little more connections with that. And I also feel like once they got to Horrorland, you were just kind of plopped right there. There was nothing about how they made their way there. They say, their parents have gone missing. There was not much about that. I don't know. I feel like the Horrorland part could have maybe a little more setup. Although I do enjoy this, just not quite as much as the originals. I do feel like they would work better as like the first parts, and then have the Horrorland be like a final book or something, you know, maybe have a little bit where they like receive the invitation and have like that be the ending. But yeah, other than that, I did really enjoy this. Deep Trouble was one of my favorite of the original Goosebumps, so I did really enjoy getting to revisit that and have it be a similar vibe. I'll put it that way because I don't want to spoil anything. And I also do have to say, I really enjoy the covers of these. I feel like they did a good job updating the covers while keeping them kind of in the same vein as like the originals and just keeping them fun and everything. This is the first audiobook of HorrorLand that I've listened to as well, and I feel like that was really fun. I enjoyed all the different voices and everything, and this is one of the few that has background sounds that I can hear them and they don't interfere with the actual story. Like, normally, this is one of the reasons I don't listen to graphic audio, is that the background stuff, I have a very hard time hearing the actual story over it, but this one was formatted much better. So now, obviously, I'm not going to go on to book 3 because that was Monster Blood for Breakfast, and I have already read that in the last Goosebumps vlog. So I will be going on to book 4, which I cannot remember what the name of that is off the top of my head, but I will let you all know once I get there. Scream of the Haunted Mask is, of course, book 4 in the HorrorLand series, and I have to say, so far, this is my favorite one. And like the other ones, it does connect to the original Goosebumps. However, unlike the other ones, it does actually mention those past books. So in this one, of course, we're following Carly Beth, who is the main character in The Haunted Mask. And it does go into the fact that she had this mask the previous Halloween, and then it goes to the next year's Halloween. So I did really enjoy that, and I do feel like this was one of the creepier ones. The Haunted Mask was one of the creepier ones anyways, so it makes sense that this would be as well. And this one, although I had the same issue with the HorrorLand part, that there was a little bit of like, you know, how were they chosen? When did they get there? Sort of thing. This one felt a lot more like it kind of tied in to the rest of HorrorLand, and there wasn't as much that it was like, you know, oh yeah, they had been through this at HorrorLand. No, the only thing that was referenced is they had been through what happened in the first part of the story. So I felt like that meshed together a whole lot better. And yeah, this one has me definitely really excited to get further into these and maybe try to predict and see like which original book they will tie back into. Although there are a few that by the titles, I'm not sure at all, but I'm definitely intrigued to see where this goes, and I'll definitely be interested to see how HorrorLand ends. And I am again absolutely loving the endings of like the first half, that they have that absolutely hilarious, rather unhinged, um, huge cliffhanger ending. And I know I've said this almost every time, but that was one of my favorite parts of Goosebumps. And I love that that was kept up. And yeah, obviously, even with listening to these, I can get through several in a day. I listened to Creep from the Deep today as well, and went right on to this one after I updated you all. So yeah, definitely having fun with it. So I finished volume 5 of Goosebumps HorrorLand, Robbie Swartz versus uh, Dr. Maniac. And this one was pretty fun. I think it's related to Revenge of the Mutant in the original one. I'm not sure if that's Robbie Swartz or not, but the name does sound familiar to me. And this one, as with all the others, I really loved the little twist at the end. And like the last Goosebumps Horrorland, I did enjoy the Horrorland part of this as well. And the one issue that I've had with most of them, other than the first, of, the parents disappeared and it's not really mentioned, it hasn't been bothering me as much these last few. And I feel like this is really starting to bring all the Horrorland elements together as well. And I'm really enjoying the callbacks to the original series. And yeah, this has definitely taken a turn for the better, and I'm very excited to continue it. And I do believe I'm going to do this whole series now on audiobook, because Hoopla, the whole reason I switched to audiobooks is the last time I checked Hoopla, some of the just ebooks were missing. Actually, a lot of them were for this series, but they had all the audiobooks. They have since added back all the ebooks, but since the audiobooks never went missing, I'm just going to go ahead with them. And unfortunately, this is also one of the Goosebumps series that I'm not enjoying reading as much. I am enjoying listening to it. I don't think I would get as much enjoyment reading it, just because of how much of a younger audience it is meant for. But yeah, like I said, I will continue and let you know what I think of the next audiobook. Who's Your Mummy follows Abby and Peter, who are a brother and sister living with their grandmother. And when she starts to get a little sick, they go to stay with their Uncle Jonathan, who is an Egyptologist. And some mummy fun ensues. I did enjoy this one, and I did think it was a little unique around R.L.Stine's, in that it was about mummies, but still set in America. That is one thing I did like about the original Goosebumps, is that there were a few that were set in other countries, or were like very atmospheric. This one, I did feel like it was very atmospheric with the old mansion, and the Horrorland part was actually really interesting as well, and did kind of start bringing more characters together. And I am hopeful that starting with the next book, the Horrorland stuff will be less about adding kids and more about actually figuring out what's going on, because this one did have Abby, and then it also had the boy from the next book. And so I'm hoping that when he gets to Horrorland, it will just be a continuation of where this one left off, which was quite a cliffhanger. And I do have to say, this is also one of the ones that the ending to the first part of the story, although it was definitely still kind of a cliffhanger, it was one of the ones that I didn't find funny. I found it kind of more sweet. And if you read this book, you will kind of understand that, at least knowing what the idea was behind it. And this one did have a few plot holes that I noticed. There were some things that just seemed to kind of be brushed under the rug, or that just got, we were just told this is what happens and not really given an explanation. Like, honestly, I would have loved to know more about the cat, and I would have loved to know more about Uncle Jonathan as well, and some of the other ones. But again, with this being a middle grade book, going into it knowing that, I was able to just kind of put that aside and have a lot of fun. My Friends Call Me Monster is the 7th book in Goosebumps HorrorLands, and this one follows a 12-year-old boy named Michael, nicknamed Monster, because he is very tall, has a little bit of an anger issue, and is also on the wrestling team. And he kind of has a beef with one of his teachers, and most of the students think she's weird. And when he engineers a trick and she punishes him, he wants to get back at her by putting a black cat in her house. And this leads to him finding out some secrets and then getting invited to Horrorland. So this one had the fun little twist ending at the end of like his story that was outside of Horrorland. And then I did like the fact that when we get to Horrorland, it explains how this twist was resolved. Because, like, honestly, most of the twists are something that, like, whatever the main part of the story was, now comes back. And they have to, like, defeat it again, basically. And so this one just did actually explain how they defeated it again. Whereas in a lot of the others, that wasn't explained. So I do feel like the Horrorland part is getting better as we go on. There was one little bit that I was kind of like, okay, is that really how that would work? But as I said with multiple of these books as well, being that it's a middle grade, it is something that I can overlook and still enjoy it. And I am still enjoying the audiobooks on this. They have the slight sound effects, and just the way these sound effects are formatted, they don't bother me. Most books, like graphic audios with sound effects, I have tried to listen to the Fourth Wing one, and I honestly didn't even make it through a chapter because just the sound effects, while I liked them, they unfortunately overrode the narrator's voice for me. And I have seen that being a problem. And even in some of the other, like, regular books that have some slight sound effects, I have had that being a problem. Or, like, they have a little bit of music through the beginning part of the chapter. It has really made it hard for me to hear the narrator. And in this one, just the sound was a much better mix, in my opinion. And I do recommend definitely reading these in order. Or another option is read them, read the first halves in whatever order you want, and then go back to book 1 and read the Welcome to HorrorLand from book 1 to book 19, I believe, are in this series. And then you can kind of do whatever you want there, because the main story is basically just for you to understand why they're at Horrorland. None of the main stories, at least so far, have truly connected to each other. It's not until the Horrorland parts. So this is everything I have for Goosebumps Readathon Part 5. And yeah, this was definitely a fun series. I will definitely be continuing it and have several more parts, obviously, of Horrorland. After that, there is some other stuff. House of Shivers, Most Wanted, that I think would be fun to do as well, and are a little more modern than the original ones. But I also really can't wait to get to these original ones. But I will let you know once I get through Horrorland, because that will take a little bit longer, especially since they are on Hoopla, which means I can only check out 6 a month. So I will also not be getting ahead on these videos like I was before. I think I did the first 3 parts in like a month and a half, but I posted them obviously over 3 months. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know down below in the comments if you read any of the Goosebumps. Did you read this particular series? Do you have a favorite Goosebumps? Did you read Fear Street, Nightmare Room, anything like that? I am also thinking about going on to Fear Street, because I only have a very, very few of those. And I would definitely be interested to get into one that's geared towards a slightly older audience. But as always, if you like this video, please like and subscribe and hit that bell icon so that you'll be notified every time I post a new video. And I will see you next time in the book cave.